Throughout the entirety of the Skywalker saga and the lore that exists beyond its films, there have been so many lightsaber duels I cannot count them. But that is not to say that I cannot rank them, which I'll certainly do in another video. However, what is the best of these duels? Well, in my opinion, it's the duel in the Senate Chambers, where Darth Sidious, the current reigning Dark Lord of the Sith and Galactic Emperor of the Galactic Empire, and Grandmaster of the now purged Jedi Order, Grandmaster Yoda, go head-to-head in a clash of the light and dark sides of the Force in the Senate Chamber. Now, while this is certainly my most favourite and most choreographed duel in all of Star Wars lore, films, TV shows, texts, holocrons and comics included, there are some parts of it that I do not like. So let's do what we always do on this channel, and let's explore and delve into the deep Star Wars lore that these holocrons contain. Explore and scour the archives of the Jedi for the full analyzation of this duel. What really happened? Let's find out. At last, the Jedi anymore. Not if anything to say about it, I have. Sorry about that. That was just my Yoda and Darth Sidious impression. Tell me how good it was in the comments. During the start of the Great Jedi Purge, the second Jedi Purge in galactic history in Legends continuity, a lightsaber duel was fought between the current reigning Sith Master and Galactic Emperor, Darth Sidious, also known as Emperor Palpatine, and the Jedi Grand Master of the time, Yoda. Two equally matched enemies, strong and masterful of their sides of the Force, the Jedi Master and the Dark Lord of the Sith engaged in a powerful and devastating lightsaber duel within the heart of the Imperial Senate Chamber. Ultimately, Yoda ended up retreating and going into exile on the planet Dagobah, using the dark side Force Nexus to conceal his identity, while Darth Sidious consolidated his reign as Emperor of the Galaxy. This duel was fought during the date 19 BBY, during the conflict known as the Great Jedi Purge. Previously, they had the infiltration of the Jedi Temple, where Yoda and Obi-Wan infiltrated the Jedi Temple and were attacked by a battalion of clones. It was concurrent with a duel on Mustafar, commonly stated as the most loved and anticipated duel in all of Star Wars. Destroy the Sith. We must. The prelude to this duel is quite simple, a ferocious duel between Jedi Master of the Order, Mace Windu, and Supreme Chancellor Palpatine, who revealed himself to the would-be Chosen One, Anakin Skywalker, as the Dark Lord of the Sith, Darth Sidious, had ended when Anakin Skywalker intervened to save the Chancellor and now newly christened Emperor by slicing off Windu's sword hand. This action stripped Windu of his lightsaber and allowed Sidious to send tendrils and veins of Force lightning at the Jedi Master to kill him and shoot him down into the streets of Coruscant below. Sidious, having played the role of mentor to the Anakin Skywalker for years, as he grew more disillusioned with the Jedi Order, swayed him to this side by tempting him with the ability to save his own wife, Padme Amidala, through the power of the dark side of the Force. Something that Anakin would eventually learn was possible during the events of the Darth Vader comic series, one of the best comics ever created. Though horrified initially about what he had allowed to happen and what his actions had done against Mace Windu, one of the most powerful and skilled Jedi alive at that point and in galactic history, Skywalker desired to save his wife above all considerations, even that for his friend Obi-Wan Kenobi, and furthermore believed that his role in Windu's death had eliminated any possibility and future of returning to the Jedi Order, even if he did rebel against Sidious's rule. And anyway, Sidious would have killed Skywalker, or more likely killed all the Jedi that Skywalker had sent to attack him, if he had retreated back to the temple. Skywalker then pledged allegiance to the Dark Lord, who anointed him with the Sith name Darth Vader, who would eventually become the most popular movie character of all time. Vader's new master then sent him to the Jedi Temple with the 501st Legion, Anakin's clone legion, during the events of the 4-year-long Clone Wars, and ordered him to massacre all Jedi within, even Yoda and Obi-Wan Kenobi, two of the most powerful and well-respected Jedi Masters who had gathered a reputation as scholars and Force acolytes of the light side above any other, including Mace Windu. Palpatine, meanwhile, executed Order 66, a protocol programmed using computer-inhibited chips into the clones' mind before their birth to execute their Jedi commanders in the event of a Jedi betrayal. The two combined actions almost completely eradicated the Jedi Order in just a few short minutes, with Plo Koon, Aayla Secura, and Ki-Adi-Mundi being decimated by their clone troopers, despite their attempts to defeat them, and Anakin killing the Jedi Master Sindrolic and all of the Padawans inside the temple, but saving Jocasta Nu as she was able to evade his senses, also killing well-respected Jedi Shakti in Star Wars canon. Before leaving the temple, Vader activated a beacon signaling to the Jedi to return to Coruscant in the hopes that it would attack Jedi to be destroyed by the event of Order 66 and its few survivors. Jedi Masters Yoda and Obi-Wan Kenobi, however, had managed to survive the first strike of the Great Jedi Purge through Yoda using his skill and precognitive senses, and Obi-Wan being thought to have been killed after being shot down on the cliff in Utapau. Discovering the message and suspecting that it was a trap, they made their way to the Jedi Temple with what would be known as the infiltration of the temple, with the hope of reconfiguring the transmission. Upon their arrival, they discovered a clone trooper garrison left to kill any Jedi that heeded the beacon home. After eliminating them, they recoded the beacon to warn all remaining Jedi Knights to go into hiding and to stay away from the temple at all costs, and any clone troopers, as well as Darth Vader and Sidious. Looking at the temple's security holo footage on their way out, they discovered that Skywalker, Kenobi's former Padawan and apprentice, had led the assault. Knowing they had to destroy the Sith Lords for the sake of the galaxy, they decided to split up and take out the two Sith individually. Kenobi initially wanted to fight and duel Sidious, unable to bear the thought of striking down his former pupil and friend. Yoda, however, the wisest Jedi in possibly all of galactic history, pointed out that Sidious was far too strong for Kenobi, and possibly even the Grand Master, and instead sent him to track down Vader on the lava world of Mustafar. Yoda, meanwhile, infiltrated the Senate building, determined to kill the recently promoted Emperor and Galactic Emperor of the new Empire. "I hear a new apprentice you have, Emperor, or should I call you Darth Sidious?" Yoda spoke these words once entering the Senate building. Inside the Senate building, Yoda strolled into the Emperor's office casually, and then casually rendered his two royal guards unconscious by force pushing them into the wall with his telekinetic prowess. Mockingly addressing Sidious as the Emperor of the Galaxy, Yoda informed the Dark Lord that he knew of Anakin's status as Sidious's new apprentice. Sidious noted rhetorically that Yoda had survived Order 66, and when Yoda facetiously asked him if he was surprised, Sidious snarled that Yoda's arrogance had blinded him to the dark side of the Force that had been engulfing the Jedi Order and building up in power for the last millennia, nearly Yoda's entire lifetime. He then launched a barrage of Force lightning at the Grand Master, with Yoda's senses being unable to detect it before it was too late. The Force lightning slammed into the Grand Master and shot him up against the wall and caused him to momentarily lose consciousness. Realizing that a battle between two Force Masters was imminent, Vice Chair Mas Amedda quickly left the office as Sidious approached the prone Jedi Master, laughing contemptuously at his opponent. Sidious taunted Yoda with the fact that the Order had been destroyed and the Jedi were all purged from the galaxy. Suddenly, Yoda leapt to his feet, unfazed by the lightning after its initial attack, responding with a forced push from his hand, and defiance, quote, that the Jedi Order would not be destroyed and that he would perish along with it. This forced push sent Sidious flying backwards across the room, shattering his force barrier, and shooting him over his desk in a heap of black robes, landing face first in his office chair, which then toppled over. Yoda asserted that Sidious's short reign was over, and that it had not been shown enough. Sidious attempted to flee, knowing that if he were to lose to the Grand Master, then Darth Vader would have no dark side teachings to build his immense empire upon. Yoda then hindered his way, using his mastery of Otaru acrobatics, and ignited his emerald lightsaber, challenging that Sidious had no need to leave if he was as powerful as he proclaimed he was. Realizing he would have to fight the Jedi Master blade to blade, Sidious ignited his own lightsaber and snarled that Yoda could not stop him because the Chosen One and now fallen Jedi Knight Darth Vader would become more powerful than either of them. In response, Yoda stated that his faith in Vader and the dark side itself were perhaps misplaced and exaggerated. With nothing less to be said, the duel between the two equally matched foes and champions of the dark and light side of the Force and masters of the Sith and Jedi orders began. Easily the most anticipated duel in all of Star Wars lore, with the exception of possibly Revan and Malak, and the duel between Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader on the Death Star. It should be important to note that Palpatine wanted Yoda to be pushed into the corridor, as he knew that Yoda's style was Otaru, the more acrobatic form of lightsaber combat, and by confining him to a hallway, he had more of a chance of besting the Blade Master in single combat, something that Yoda ultimately proved more proficient in using a lightsaber over Palpatine. The battle raged through the office for some time, with neither opponent able to gain a definitive advantage against the other. The fight eventually moved to the Chancellor's podium in the center of the room, which rose through the retractable ceiling into the Senate chamber, like it did during Senate sessions. As the duel commenced upon the podium, Sidious found himself hampered by the small size of the battleground, while Yoda was able to leap and evade all of Sidious's attacks with little difficulty. Sidious eventually jumped to one of the Senate pods above him, knowing he would fare better against the Grand Master with more space to move around in, and began to use the Force to throw waves of these pods as Yoda, the Grand Master, used his own powers and Force augmentation to use acrobatics in order to shoot himself from one pod to the other, dodging each of the strikes, and attempted to make his way up to where Sidious was, perched in order to re-engage him in close combat with his lightsaber, which Yoda believed, upon assessing Sidious's mastery of all 7 forms, he was more proficient in due to his experience. However, the Dark Lord's attack was too intense for Yoda to close the distance, and eventually he slipped on a Senate pod and fell as Sidious continued his barrage. Regaining his feet sluggishly, Yoda realized that his strategy was failing, and he deactivated his own weapon. As Sidious sent yet another pod hurling at him, Yoda used his own powers and telekinesis to stop it, rotating it slowly and sending it hurling back at Sidious, with Sidious blinded by his own arrogance and superiority in his mind over the Jedi Master. As the pod flew at the Dark Lord, he snarled at the power of the Grand Master being able to equally match his. He was forced to jump from his perch to a lower pod. Yoda immediately saw his chance to re-engage the Dark Lord of the Sith at close quarters, and leaped at the Sith Lord, landing on the edge of Sidious's pod and reigniting his emerald blade. However, Sidious unleashed a torrent of devastating purple Force lightning at Yoda before he could strike, knocking Yoda's lightsaber from his hand and into the Senate chambers below. Disarmed, Yoda was forced to rely on his Tutuminus ability to absorb Sidious's lightning bare-handed. This is an immensely and nigh impossible feat in Star Wars, as Sidious's lightning, at the height of its power in Star Wars Legends, was able to instantly vaporize and incinerate his opponents with ease, making Sidious unquestionably the most powerful practitioner of this ability in all of Star Wars lore, with his only contenders possibly being the Sun, Abeloth, and Emperor Vitiate, and possibly Darth Nihilus, although this was not his most famous ability. Sidious eventually closed in on Yoda, steadily bolstering and increasing the power of his lightning, and eventually resorting to aiming his attack above Yoda's Tutuminus defense by elevating his body upwards, causing Yoda to falter and fall victim to his lightning. Sidious cackled in triumph over the Grand Master and pressed his attack further, but Yoda eventually managed to start coalescing the energy of Sidious's Force lightning more efficiently into a blue orb between the two of them, slowly redirecting the lightning back onto an astounded Sidious, who was slowly being pushed back by the strength of Yoda's immense counterattack. However, the combination of both of their powers caused an explosion of Force energy, blasting them both apart, with the dark side abruptly ending the battle as quickly as it had started. It should be noted that Sidious, in the Revenge of the Sith novelization, was disarmed by Yoda, making Yoda the more skilled duelist in this scenario and during this duel. However, this was due to the fact that Sidious knew if they continued to fight on dueling skills, he would eventually be overrun despite his immense skill at dark side augmentation. And he knew he had to fall back on the ability and phase he was more skilled at, that being the Force, using his immense mastery of the dark side against Yoda, which he knew he would eventually win against. Sidious was sent tumbling head over heels to the edge of the pond, grappling on with his phantom grey palm, but having been at its opposite end when the orb exploded, he was not thrown clear and managed to grab one of the pod's guardrails. Yoda, however, had been standing at the very edge of the pod during the explosion and weighed very little due to his small stature, as his species properly suggests. As such, he was blasted completely clear of the pod and fell all the way back to the Chancellor's podium in the center of the Senate chamber. Yoda struck the podium too hard to control his landing and bounced off the structure's main body to its edge. There, he managed just to barely stop himself from falling and desperately attempted to climb back up onto the podium, his fingernails scraping against the wall and metal material. But, exhausted from holding onto the smooth surface and from his duel with Sidious, Yoda was not able to maintain his grip. He slid from the lip of the podium and fell dozens of meters to the Senate floor. Battered and spent, Yoda realized that he could not defeat Sidious and retreated as the Dark Lord cackled in triumph. Nevertheless, as Yoda had retreated, Sidious had not technically defeated the Grand Master due to them being equally matched in lightsaber combat, with Yoda being a shade more skillful, as I assume, and Sidious being a shade more skillful in matters of the Force. Into exile I must go. Failed I have. The aftermath of this battle was quite devastating on the mental state of the Grand Master. Shortly thereafter, a commander and garrison of shock troopers of the Coruscant Guard detachment guarding the Senate building, commanded by Commander Thyre, swept the chamber, but were unable to discover the green creature's body. The failure to locate his body convinced Vice Chair Masameda that the Grand Master was still alive, with Sidious sensing through the Force that Yoda had not died, leading both the Emperor and the Vice Chair to order Thyre and the other stormtroopers to intensify their search and bolster it. But the Dark Lord did not involve himself further, believing he had broken Master Yoda, and he had gotten all he could out of the duel, despite Yoda's immense power, and Sidious being on the backpedal for some of the duel. He admitted that it would be nothing less than playtime for a Dark Lord of his power, and he found it truly exhilarating that Yoda was able to match him for essentially all of the duel. Instead of involving himself further in the matter, the Emperor ordered Ameda to prepare his shuttle for immediate departure, as he sensed that Lord Vader, during the concurrent battle on Mustafar, was in mortal danger at the hands of his former master, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and his own arrogance. Shortly thereafter, Commander Thyre escorted Sidious to the volcanic planet Mustafar, steeped in dark side energy, and recovered the critically wounded Darth Vader, where Obi-Wan Kenobi had dismembered and maimed Vader and left him to die, writhing and burning in pain, and left him to burn alive on the shores of the river of molten rock. Sidious collected his apprentice and brought his charred, maimed, and devastated body to the Grand Medical Facility on Coruscant. There, Vader underwent extensive cybernetic reconstruction to replace the parts of his organic body that had been severed and destroyed by both Obi-Wan and Mustafar's ravaging flames, and was fitted with a suit of integral armor and a respirator that he would wear for the rest of his life, despite the few moments where he was allowed in a bacta tank to heal his wounds. Having been unable to defeat the Sith Lord, Yoda deducted that it was the best and most intelligent move to go into exile on the swamp planet of Dagobah, using the strong dark side Force nexus in the Cave of Darkness there to hide his Force presence, where he would wait until Anakin's own son, Luke, was old enough to turn his father back from the dark side and kill the Emperor. Years later on Dagobah, Yoda would train Luke in the ways of the Force, who would ultimately go on to rescue his father from the corruptive and seductive ways of the dark side and inspire him to defeat the Emperor, bringing balance to the Force at last. Well, my friends, that was the entire story and the analysis of the Duel in the Senate Chambers. Tell me if you like this, and tell me if you want to do any more Duel analysis in the future. Goodbye, Acolytes, and I'll see you in a galaxy far, far away.